How do you start your videos usually?
I actually don't start them the same way every single time because
Oh, you're missing out. It's
is that the tech?
it's good tech. Yeah, you start your video well because you imitated me at the start of the last one.
Well, I don't ever start my videos the
All right.
same.
Well, let's just have this be the intro and just start it
All right.
going.
Anyways,
That sounds good.
okay, so we just got done casting a lot today, and we've seen a lot of splits. There was very few mythic bosses that were killed. So in general, heroic week is going to cut down on the amount of heroic splits that we have to watch during mythic week. But there's still heroic splits to be done during
Yes.
mythic week.
The rumors of Split's death during the Race to World First have definitely been overstated. The good news is there probably won't be too many Wednesday splits for NA or Thursday splits for EU. Like, I think one day of homework and splits, and then maybe a little bit of the next day. But
Yeah.
actually, I suspect that for Echo, there's a very good chance that they will be done with all of their split work in one day, because instead of starting at noon local time, they're going to be starting at 5 a.m. local time, and I think they can get all of it done before they go to bed.
I mean, they just burn the midnight oil, and
Yeah,
then
exactly.
they go to midnight. Literally, legitimately, from 5 to midnight, you're doing
You do it
mythic
once,
quests.
and you're doing content that is not going to require your full focus at the end of the day, which lets them kind of claw back some of that 12-hour advantage, which has now been cut down to 7 hours by maintenance.
So yeah, from a liquid perspective, I mean, the maintenance actually, I don't want to say messed them up, but it was pretty suboptimal. Now, what ended up happening today was first four bosses of Mythic went down. A lot of heroic bosses are dead. It seemed like we had an interview with Max. It seemed like they only had like 4 or 5 Queen Anserex left, and then there was probably a couple of hours of Mythic Plus ahead of them to be able to get some of those Myth Track crests, so then everybody could be able to craft their gear. And so it seems like Liquid is getting close to the end of the gearing process for this week in terms of like
Yeah.
how much more gear can we possibly get.
Yeah, Tuesday featured the first 4, all getting again one shot by Liquid. We don't know for sure yet how many pulls Method and Echo are going to take on each of those bosses, but I would guess one, maybe 2 or something here. Maybe there's an incident on one of the bosses. Rashanon actually looked maybe tough. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a couple pull bosses for Echo or Method, but
yeah.
something could go wrong. But even still, I would be shocked if it was if more than 10 total pulls were divided among those 4 bosses for either Method or Echo.
Liquid did something that was pretty unconventional in the first 4 bosses as well. So historically, you run the comp that you want to see for like the harder bosses throughout the entire raid. But what was actually kind of surprising is they ran 26 unique characters through the raid, which is
Yeah.
I would describe it as atypical. It's not like the craziest thing to see. And like you said, whenever we were talking about it on the broadcast, it's like they're not actually giving up anything to play these specs. It's more just like it's pretty infrequent that you're going to give up box opportunities, or you're actually just going to take those players out of the raid.
You don't actually hurt. Like, if you do it right, you're killing 7 bosses. So if it's a 2-week race, right,
Okay.
which is the only situation where boxes matter, right? If it's a 1-week race, it doesn't matter at all.
It doesn't matter at all, yeah.
But if it's a 2-week race and the boxes matter, you're killing 7 bosses this week almost for sure, right?
Sure.
It would be very wild for Silken Court to not die this week. Even in the wildest dreams of how hard Silken Court is, it's probably dying on Monday, right? Like, that's like the super hard mode Silken Court. Maybe it makes it to the second reset, but like that would be wild if that were to happen. So you're assuming 7 bosses are going to die. You only need 6 bosses for a box, so you can sit everybody for 1 boss
Yeah,
and
exactly.
not hurt their vaults. And so what you saw Liquid do is they sat THD for their first boss. He's going to be in for surezies on everything, right? But you can sit him on the first boss because it doesn't matter. It's the first boss. And they did the same with Fired Up on the second boss. And then you're slotting in a couple of maybes here and there. 2 hunters come in on a boss that could drop a bow in case you drop 2 bows, because that's really good value, right? And it would be a catastrophe to have 2 bows drop and not have your second hunter in case you ever wanted to use that. So once you go through all that logic, it's not too weird what they did, but it's definitely true that in a lot of previous tiers, you kind of wouldn't have done all that thinking all that far ahead about how the week is going to end and what the vaults are going to look like. And this over the last couple of tiers, that level of analysis has really ramped up for all the Race to World First guilds.
Yeah, so we have some charts on Warcraft logs. Do you have anything else that you necessarily want to say about any of the first 4? Like you said, maybe we can just jump into surprise specs. Maybe that'll end up being optimal.
Yeah.
But in terms of the first 4 bosses like Olgarak, Sikran, Bloodbound Horror, and Rashanon, anything notable?
Nothing huge on these bosses. I would say, if you're a guild out there that's looking at doing some mythic bosses this week, setting your sights on killing these 4 this week, I think is very plausible for any guild that gets cutting edge. I think if you're, if you raid enough, if you don't have a lot of heroic to do this week, I think these bosses are all eminently killable. They were all one shot by Liquid. And I think that as long as you commit your crafts and stuff first, if you're not doing a lot of splits,
You need tier.
yeah, you want to again heroic first, not mythic first. If you're not Liquid, right, like that probably makes sense. But I think the tuning on these bosses is nice, and it's definitely I would set your sights on trying to fight all 4 of these. If that doesn't happen, that's okay. If you're a guild that gets to mythic later in the tier and you want to be doing heroic and mythic plus and stuff this week, that's also totally okay. But they all definitely did feel pretty fair for mythic bosses, for early mythic bosses.
Yeah.
Let's move on to talking about those specs, like you said, because we can actually see some of them
So
even in this graphic. That's a lot of devastation lizards.
So we talked about AUG a decent amount yesterday, talking about how good AUG has been in the past. It's really optimal whenever you're able to buff players on their cooldowns and you have like this preset timing of when you're going to be buffing people. You have these notes that are set up as well that you're going to be able to buff people on very specific timings. Dev in general is really a lot better if you're not pre-planning. I don't know why they ran Dev over AUG. They could also just think, frankly, that Dev is better, but they played Dev in 4 out of 4 fights, and they played upwards of 3, but mostly 2 on every single boss, which is the optimal number of augmentation of Evokers.
So yeah, if it was just a bunch of fights where they played 2 devs, I'd be thinking, okay, they're just gearing their AUGs and playing Dev on the easy fights. But what really stood out to me was the fact that on Ulgrax they played 3 Evokers. You never are going to play 3 AUGs, right? 3 AUGs is a number that is never right. The number of AUGs that you're going to play is 2 or 0 or 4. Those are the numbers that are okay, right? And 4 is pretty unlikely this tier. So you're playing either 2 or 0 AUGs. So if you're gearing an odd number of DPS Evokers, I think that the Dev is definitely real. Now it could be 2 AUG, 1 Dev. But it could also be 3, and I think 3 Dev would also be kind of aggressive. Definitely a lot of devs, but the spec looked pretty good. A lot of specs have looked pretty good here, though. There's a lot of stuff that we've been seeing play. There's Unholy popping up on Sikron. There's 2 Prez Evokers that they used as their kind of core healer comp.
So let's
pretty much everywhere.
In terms of like the healer and the tank composition, I actually am not necessarily surprised with what we're seeing from the healers and tanks. We thought it was going to be Resto Shaman Prez Evoker. We didn't necessarily think it was going to be double Prez Evoker, but Preservation Evoker is, in general, just like pretty overtuned in terms of the HPS that it's putting out. It works really well in like super coordinated guilds. You were seeing them doing 300, 400,000 HPS over the H Pally and the Disc Priest, and so it is really good. Or in some cases it was Holy Priest, but like sometimes it was Disc Priest. But like, I think that those weren't massive surprises. I guess the only surprise was maybe that it was the second Prez.
Yeah, I think that was unexpected for a lot of people, although again on the raw throughput it's been looking very good.
It's okay. All right.
What's cool as well, we've seen a lot of different specs of the same class. We've seen all 3 rogue specs already, right? They played Outlaw on Bloodbound Horror, they played Sub on Sikron, and they played Assassination on Rashanan. We've seen Destrolock as well. The spec that was least likely, I think most people had for the Warlock specs, but that's what Echo, or what Liquid has been playing so far. I don't know what Echo will play.
Dude,
yet.
Destro's weird because THG's actually doing... THG's the most geared player in the world.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
So that's one thing.
That guy's got a lot of items.
Yeah, he's 617 item level. But THG was 4th place in DPS on Sikran, single target fight, and gapped his raid on Rashanan.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me wonder, is Destro actually just like sleeper good and people weren't...
Yeah, there was a gaslight going on to get them to get buffed.
What I'm confused about is whenever you look at like raid statistics from Heroic last week, now it did get buffed, but it was like bottom 4 or 5 specs in the game. Like it was like pretty bad. So I don't really know what to think about Destro. I mean, yeah, like I don't know if chat can necessarily see that. Okay,
let me scroll it down. There's Destro. This is demo, and then this is Destro.
So Destro's in like 6 from the bottom, which is not great, but then THD's just like destroying his raid. So that was a bit surprising. The Warriors, far less surprising.
Yeah, we've seen Arms though. Arms been looking good. Fury's been looking good. No surprise there, absolutely.
We saw both Ellie and Enhance. Ellie and Enhance are both phenomenal. I think that long term the Ellies are probably going to get dropped, but the Enhance is likely to stay.
I like Ellie. I think Ellie's good. I've always been a fan of Ellie. I think 1-1.
You think 1-1?
Calling it now, 1-1 on Ansarek.
I could believe that. There's also this weird thing that's happened with Arcane Mage over the last, I would say, 12 hours, where Burden of Power just no longer works for
These
Arcane.
things happen. Sometimes your talent ceases to work. Sometimes that happens.
And so that's like a massive... I'm sure it was a massive nerf.
Yeah, certainly.
It's not good.
It is weird, yeah. So hopefully the mage stuff gets figured out soon.
So everybody's starting to play Frost because Arcane is like actually bad with Burden of Power no longer working.
You want to see something cool from my guild's night here? They broke Arcane 45 minutes before raid time is the name of our log.
Yeah.
Here is Sikran Mythic. And look at that spec.
Wait, what? He's playing Fire.
Yeah, you don't see that all that often in
thought
the
Fire
tier
was
list. No, it was low on the tier list apparently,
Garbage.
but whoever was making those tier lists probably pretty stupid is
Maybe
what we're learning from this.
Maybe 40 is just that much better than the rest of your guild?
Just constructed with some different materials, perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, maybe he's just better than the rest of your raid.
Yeah, it is a possibility, although having played with him, I don't think it's that. It's probably something else.
Anyways. Okay, so looking at what's next, tomorrow Liquid's going to have to do, I would describe it as like 3 to 4 hours of homework, maybe upwards of like 5 hours of homework, but it's not much more than that. And then
I think 4 hours of homework probably. Like I think they'll be able to speedrun the keys as well.
Then they're gonna be a Mythic for the rest of the week at least.
And there will be a couple of like, oh, this person still wants this trinket from a key. They'll do it when they're benched, or they'll do it at the end of a day or something. Yeah.
Yep. For Echo, kind of like we outlined at the very beginning of this.
Yeah.
I think the next, 10 hours for Echo are them completely doing 100% of their splits and 100% of their Mythic Plus that they're going to need for the rest of this reset, because I think that everybody's like on high alert that this could be a 1 reset tier. Now it's not 100% guaranteed. 8 boss instances are, I would describe it as the most likely to be a 1 reset instance though.
Yeah, I mean the number of hard bosses as well. There's not a lot of people expecting there to be more than 2 hard bosses this tier.
Exactly,
so
yeah.
That is the sort of thing where it's not like a 5 hard boss tier like Sepulchre was, right? We know for a fact it's not a 5 hard boss tier. I think that you definitely want to be taking actions on your first day that set you up for either a 1 or an early 2 week clear.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it being, a 10-day tier.
Could be. It could still be 12. It's definitely possible. Like if Silken Court's really hard and Queen Anne's really hard, kind of doesn't matter how many 1-pull bosses there are, whether it's 4 1-pull bosses at the start of a raid or 6, right? That doesn't change.
We saw Tendril and Fire Act, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But you're going to have more pulls also, because you don't have to do 3 days of heroic splits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The splits, we do think, homework's going to be done for Liquid in the first half of their second day. And for Echo and Method, I think they're both hoping to be done with all their homework by the end of the marathon first day.
But I mean, without Heroic Week, homework is normally done by Friday.
Right, on the old week. So yeah, that does add extra days.
We're faster than normal, I would say.
Yeah, I think the chances of it being, I think it's more likely than not that this tier will be over in the first reset.
I think everybody should be playing like it too. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to, again, all the vault logic that Liquid have been using in who kills which boss means they're definitely prepared for it to go to a second reset still. But
I think that this is I don't really want to speak this into existence, but we've kind of talked about in the past of like what happens if it's like we re-clear and insta-kill the boss.
Ooh, that would be bad.
So, and that would always be bad. I think that this is the tier that has the highest degree of likelihood of that potentially happening.
It does have a chance.
Just with like the texture of what the raid looks like in terms of bosses. There's the heroic week, how many splits, what the gear situation is, that sets it up like that. Now, I think it's still less likely to happen than to have like a normal outcome. But I think it's, we're giving it 5 to 10% chance, which is... it's higher than you want it to be.
Certainly, yeah. I think that's everybody's gonna every tier. You always hold your breath and hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so it would. People would try to invalidate a race roll first victory, which I think is the.
I think people would be rightly upset about it ending that way, and it would hopefully lead to a change in some kind of stuff from Blizzard's end about it. That would be maybe the best thing that could come from that. Is it would maybe catalyze
you would just never
some change there.
You would never just hear the end of it either, and it'd just be so annoying.
Yeah, I mean. The good thing about the Race World First is there's already like 5 annoying storylines that you literally never hear the end of, so that's always good.
If I never had to hear about global release again, it would probably be too soon.
I feel like that is a sentiment shared by every single person who is involved in the Race World First, yeah?
Dude, I know, like, I get it, man, I just don't hear about it anymore.
Yeah, it's, well, because every tier, there's new people watching. We love all the new viewers. And then they discover the global release problem.
They start 13 hours early.
Yeah, that's it's tough out there.
But it was
only 7, I think, this time because of the maintenance.
Yeah.
If the maintenance, if EU didn't have maintenance, I don't know if they got to come up right at 5 a.m.
They just came up later.
Okay, nice, cool. Yeah, I mean that's usually how it goes, right? They find the problems when the NA maintenance happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine.
All right, that's going to be it for our recap video for today. We'll be back tomorrow with hopefully, I would say there's a good chance 6 bosses will be dead. Maybe 5.
Brute Twister and Kaveza are just fights that I think that Race World First Guilds are going to have an easy time.
Yeah, well, I think that is a common prediction, and there will be a lot of time tomorrow for Liquid to kill those bosses.
There's a chance that one of them is in. Even still, even if one of those is a 55 pull boss, we might still.
There's time for that tomorrow. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. We'll still see 55 pull boss and a 25 pull boss.
Both happen tomorrow. Yeah,
both happen tomorrow because in general we put about 100 pulls in a day. Anyways,
that's
any
it.
final thoughts? I think
Those
that's it.
final thoughts. See you tomorrow.
Goodbye.
Bye.